Okay, so first up, we have got an image problem. And I think that most of us are aware that we have an image problem, which is half the battle. Knowing that you have a problem is half the battle. The next part is how do we solve that? And so, digging into this issue, I want us to think about all of the stereotypes that are involved, all of the preconceived notions that are out there when it comes to archives and archivists, and how we can start breaking those down because the image being presented, the stereotypes, etc., they're not exactly welcoming and not all of them are flattering or accurate. So, we need to realize what those are and we need to start addressing them more effectively. So the first one is we are often intimidating and or overwhelming. And this is particularly true for any sort of potential archives user that hasn't already been in an archives, that isn't already a researcher with that background or that exposure to an archives and what it is. So we need to think about that both in terms of words we use, but also in terms of the space that we create and the sort of feeling in that space. So just keeping in mind that we need to start breaking down that intimidation and that overwhelm factor, and to be empathetic and emotionally intelligent enough to know that that exists. And when we're working with new people or trying to have conversations with people who are new to archives, that we're not perpetuating that stereotype and in fact we're breaking it down. The second one, which I know that we as archivists, we do take our jobs seriously, and the collections that we have, the content that's in there, it can be very serious content also. And we want ourselves to be taken seriously. So there's some positives with it being serious business, and the work that we do is serious work. However, the negative side of that when we present ourselves and our spaces as serious business only is we immediately sort of dissuade any potential new users who are curious about the archives, are curious about the collections, and don't necessarily have a serious business reason to approach us or to use the collections. And we want, like, that is okay. Ultimately, our job as archivists is to have our collections be used, particularly by the communities that could benefit from using them, or the communities that were in fact in charge of creating those collections. So even though serious business is good, we need to balance that with it doesn't have to all be serious business, and that helps to create a welcoming environment for newer people to come in. So we need to balance that. The third thing I want us to think about is that, at least in a physical sense, most archives are behind like literal locked doors. And as archivists, it is good that our collections are secure. That is a bonus, that is a positive thing, but we have to realize that for the people who are not familiar or invited into our space explicitly, they see those closed and locked doors, and that's going to dissuade any sort of curiosity or impetus for them to want to go inside or learn more. So we need to figure out how to address that by balancing the need for secure collections and the need to create a welcoming and inviting space. The next thing I want to tackle is our mountains of unorganized and unidentified items. For 99% of archives, which is not an official stat, but I feel is fairly accurate, we all have backlogs. We all have stuff that's come in that is just, it is what it is. It's not organized. There's a rough idea of what's in there, but otherwise we don't know. And when we present that, when we talk about backlog, or when we think about collections as not being ready because they've not been processed, we're immediately dissuading users from even trying to look at those materials. And while I can certainly understand archivists wanting things to be processed and ready for use, we also have to understand and balance the fact that there is always going to be a backlog. We are never going to get through all the processing in our lifetime. But we still need to make those collections available. Otherwise, they may never be used. And the people who need to have access to those collections may never get access to those collections if we keep them closed because they've not been worked on yet. So we need to balance that. Then there's our hated slash favorite dusty basement. Ooh, look, somebody found it in the archives, like it, just like was hidden and then magically revealed. I know we all roll our eyes at that, but we also need to realize that that is a stereotype for a reason, and it is a pervasive one, and we need to combat that. Not only for our own sanity, because I don't think much of us are a fan of the dusty basement stereotype, but also because dusty basements aren't inviting. Researchers, general users, new people to the archives, they don't want to go into a dusty basement. So we need to stop that stereotype, and we need to really get out there both in visuals and in how we communicate that the archive space is ready and welcome for people. We're actively working on stuff, and we invite people to come in, whether it's serious business or not. And the last point I want to address here is that we also have a representation issue. Many of our collections are representative of old, white, wealthy, powerful, influential, and mostly male people. So that obviously has some historical value, but not a lot of value for everyone. And when we have collections that are just in that one category, it will dissuade people who might be interested or wanting to learn more about things that don't fall in that category. So thinking about representation of what is in our collections and where our holes are, where the gaps are, and knowing that those gaps are contributing to part of our image issue and contributing to our issue of not having a collective historical record and so many other things. So I do want to highlight that point because it is a very important problem for many reasons, one of which is because it's not being welcoming to everyone.